Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Thursday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live here on Giants.com. We're so glad to be with you. I'm Paul Dottino. He is Jonathan Casillas, and we're going to be here for the next hour to talk Giants football with you, perhaps some other NFL things if you'd like to do that. It's perfectly fine. We're at 201-939-4513, 201-939-4513. You can also get us on Twitter at #GiantsChat. And you can always find an archive of this show and our entire Giants podcast network on the Giants mobile app, podcast platforms everywhere, and at giants.com/podcasts. Jonathan, good to see you again. You
Always
were
a pleasure.
back in studio when I was out in Detroit the other day.
Yeah, it was good hearing you guys, man.
Well, that was fun, man. You too.
Yeah.
You too. Now, I did want to ask you, because we have not had a chance to talk since that game. There are a lot of folks who are a little bit leery of the Giants linebacker situation. And since you played linebacker, I want to start this show right there. Because so far, they've had help from Thibodeau, they've had help from Ojulari, and that's really good. But the backup edge guys, there are folks who have questions about them. We know that. Jimenez and Fox. Baldonado trying to make a pitch as an undrafted rookie free agent. And then also, quite honestly, the inside guys, we know that Beavers and McFadden are fighting for the spot next to Bobby Okereke, but Wink Martindale, the Giants defensive coordinator, has already said plainly that McFadden's in the lead because he seems to have advanced significantly from his rookie season last year. And we also know that guys like Carter Coughlin and Deontay Johnson are trying to earn a spot as a backup on the inside. So now that I've set the whole picture for you and the dinner table is all ready to go, chow down. Tell me what you think about this picture now with the edge rushers and the guys on the inside.
Well, let's start with the interior, right? Bobby Okereke got signed here on the offseason with the deal he had because he's that guy for a reason, right? He's a solid player. He's going to be a three-down linebacker. He's going to be good in the run game, good in the pass game, good against man coverage, good against zone coverage, right? That's Bobby Okereke. All-inclusive type of linebacker the Giants been looking for a very long time.
Yes.
Now, when you look at the other guys, right, Beavers, I think he showed a lot of promise like we all seen last year, and then basically he not took a year off because he was hurt. He had a setback. And when you have a setback, that's what it means. Like you're behind the eight ball a little bit, you know? So when he comes in this year, McFadden coming off the year that he had last year, a guy that was playing defensive snaps, a guy that was playing special teams, he's not missing a beat. So he's just building off of what he had last year. So I expect him to be ahead of Beavers, right? A guy that had a lot of promise and possibly could have been a guy that rotated in last year if he didn't get hurt. But like I said, Beavers is a step back because he had a setback. So he's a little bit behind the curve. Expect Beavers, if he's still that guy, expect him to kind of close that gap, if not in the preseason, but definitely in the first quarter of the season. Right.
Okay.
And then you look at other guys like Carter Coughlin, and I love Carter Coughlin. I love how defensively he's making plays, special teams he's making plays. He's a guy that I talked about that could be in that core special teams group that the Giants, I feel like, don't really have. I think Carter Coughlin is one of those guys that is going to make the team, possibly not on defense, but because he is a solid contributor on special teams and a four-core special teams guy, he's going to be a guy that makes the team just on the strength of that, which is great because you need guys that are strictly teams. And I'm not talking about he'll never play defense. I'm not talking about that at all. But he's capable on defense, but as you can tell, he's a game changer and a playmaker on special teams, which the Giants need. Now, I like what I saw from Tamon Fox. Away.
Well, what about Deontay Johnson on the inside?
Oh, I'm sorry. Does
I
just jumped right to the outside.
Because he made a couple of plays the other day.
For me, I have to see more of him because he's the guy I don't really know too much. Of course, I've seen him in the game, but it was late in the game. It's preseason. Right. I didn't like some of the eyes of the middle linebackers and some of the offensive schemes that the Lions ran where they had that tight end fall back behind the line of scrimmage. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that those was the linebackers involved in that, and that's eyes, right? A lot of young players have bad eyes because they're either looking at too much or they're looking at too little.
Recognition, very important.
You know, so I seen that out of the younger guys, and Johnson might have been one of those, culprits on one of those plays. Who else we got at middle linebacker?
Well, that's really your battle.
That's the battle, right? Yep.
So now you can go to the outside and start with Fox if you
Okay.
like.
Yeah. Well, Tamon Fox was the guy I feel like, especially early in the game, the first play of the game, he got pressure on the quarterback right away. And he's going against second string guys mostly, but guys that are gonna play in the NFL. Most likely. So I like that. I like that he was getting after it really early, and he looked like he was part of the Giants squad. You know what I mean? Like, he looks like he can be in that rotational piece with Aziz, with Kayvon, with Jahad Ward, right? Guys that we know are going to be repping for the Giants come September 10th against the Dallas Cowboys. I like the way Tamon Fox played. And then also, who else we got here?
Well, Zimenez is also on the edge as well.
And Zimenez, for me, I think I need to see more from him because he's a guy that's not too young. He's not the old wily veteran, but he is a veteran. He has fourth year now, is it, or fifth year?
Yeah, well, it's his time to accelerate his game because he's been rather quiet his first 3 years here.
Yeah, and then this preseason, he's kind of been quiet too. I don't really see like him showing up too much on one-on-one plays that you guys have been, documenting. I haven't seen him really show up too much in the first game, too much. So I expect him to show up in these next 2 weeks. And if not, I think the Giants will move on from him because of the young guys like a Baldonado, like a Tamon Fox, some of these guys that show promise and the potential that's there and it's not tapped into. When you give a guy like O'Shane Zimenez years and years and years of chances and reps and you see like, okay, he's a good player, possibly be a rotational guy, definitely a special teams guy. But if that's the cap on him, you might want to find another guy that can actually be a more of a contributor on first, second, and third down.
See, that's why I mentioned Baldonado when I set this up for you, because Baldonado coming out of Pitt. Now remember, his story is pretty unique. He grew up in Rome. His family moved to Florida when he was 17 years old. He had played 3 years of American football over in Europe. So he gets to Florida at 17 and then winds up at the University of Pittsburgh to play his college ball. Now, a lot of times he had his hand down, but we're looking at him here as potentially an outside linebacker and a pass rush guy. Obviously, he's going to have to play special teams as well. There's no doubt about that. But he, to me, is the wild card. He is the wild card. Does he show enough over the course of the next 3 weeks to be a guy who can squeeze out somebody on that 53-man roster? Or does he not show enough but has had enough of flashes that you probably practice squad him and then hope that he is one of those developmental players on the practice squad or one of, as opposed to a scout guy? Because it's different now. The practice squad, because it's so large, you now have 3 kinds of players on the practice squad. You have developmental guys, you have scout guys, and then you have insurance policies. It used to be that you just had developmental guys or scout guys. Right. But now you also have insurance policies, which are usually veterans. You're not talking about a rookie as an insurance policy. So there are 3 kinds of people now on the practice squads these days because of the expansion. So where would you put Baldonado today, and where do you think he's going to land in 3 weeks?
Well, I think for him, especially because I would say he's new to football, relatively new to football.
No doubt.
I think he has to be in that developmental group, and last year I watched this coaching staff develop players throughout the season, that's very good because on this level, there's not too much development that goes on, especially with coaches. The players is usually the players doing it on their own, because the coaches expect you to be pros, which this is the professional level. You're not getting no higher to this in terms of American football, right? So I understand that, but I did watch guys improve throughout the year last year. Young guys,
no
McFadden
doubt.
included, Isaiah Hodgins, and we can keep going on. I watched these guys improve from when they got here to when they left at the season's end when they played the Philadelphia Eagles. I like Baldonado. The hands to the face.
By the letter of the law,
right.
It was a penalty.
I get that.
We don't have to like it.
I get it. This is football, though, man. This is American football.
O'Hara and I were in the booth, and we looked at each other, and it is what it is.
Oh, it is what it is.
All right. So you're thinking right now he's practice squad.
Yes.
Does he have, in your mind, an upside over the next 3 weeks that he could steal a spot?
Absolutely, but that has to be proven in the next 3 weeks, right?
Okay.
We've only seen him out one time, and he might even show us more the next time, or he might not show us more the next time. So with guys like that who are relatively unknown guys, of course he's new to football, the potential because of what you saw for him in week 1, I think is pretty high. You know, not as high as like a Azeez Ojulari, you know, who went to a major school, played there for years in Georgia, but a guy like that who is very raw, right? He needs to learn skills for that position. He probably just going off of straight will and skills that he has from what he's learned in all the sports that he's played leading up. Paul, I started playing football my freshman year in high school. I feel like I didn't learn how to tackle until like my sophomore year in college.
No kidding.
It takes a while, you know? Like I was just learning the positions my freshman year in high school.
Yeah.
You know, so it takes a while. Football is a huge game. There's a lot that goes into it. And the reason why I think the Giants right now, the potential is there for them to have a better year than last year because everybody's more experienced underneath this system, coaches included, right? You got Kafka. Kafka is a young guy. He's my age. You know, I played against Kafka in college. You know, he's not an old guy. He has coaching experience, but
there's only one old guy in this room, and it's not you.
Hey, but look, we listen. You know what I'm saying? I listen to my older guys. You know what I mean? That's why whenever you talk, I'm sitting there watching and I'm taking notes, right? But when you look at this roster and you look at this coaching staff, the second year with all of these guys, you know, that they brought back from last year, I'm expecting improvement on all facets of the game of football, coaching, special teams, offense and defense, and all the players as well.
You know, a lot of people ask me all the time, they say, well, when we hear of this improvement in year 2, and the common phrase is the player is more comfortable, right? That's what we always hear. And I've had people say to me, well, what does that mean? What does that exactly mean? Break that down for me. And the best way that I can describe it, and you tell me if I've got this wrong, the best way I can describe it is when you're a young player still trying to get familiar with what you're supposed to be doing. Remember, alignment, assignment, and execution are the 3 factors that you have to make a play successful. It seems to me that when you're a young rookie player still trying to weed your way into the whole system and the fabric of what's going on, you're spending so much time thinking about alignment and assignment more than execution. But when you get more comfortable, there's that phrase, more comfortable, the alignment and the assignment becomes automatic, and now you can take all of your energies and worry about execution. Is that fair?
Yeah, and then a lot of people associate what you just said with playing fast, right? Because you're not thinking as much. You're going out there and you're just reacting, because that's what defense is about. Defense is reacting to what the offense is, what their alignment is, what their you know pre-snap keys are, what their splits are, down and distance, and then you're reacting to what they show you. Linemen, are they high? Linemen, are they low? Right? Situation, down and distance, and all that stuff. But if you're sitting here thinking about what's my assignment, and now motion happens, and you're like, you're thinking too much. And the thing is, young guys, rookies, first-year players, second-year players under new schemes, new players on this team that might be veterans, there has to be a thinking because you have to process information, you know? So this year, like I was saying earlier, the second year in the system, most guys are not going to be thinking and processing that information as much. They're going to be more reacting to things, and that's how you play faster, right? So the reason why I was saying that earlier, because this is the second year in both Kafka and Wink Martindale's system. So I'm expecting the guys to play faster. And
I don't think there's any doubt.
And you got a lot of guys who are talented, like Kayvon Thibodeau. Kayvon Thibodeau last year was his first year. Evan Neal last year was his first year. Both of those guys had knee injuries. Both of those guys, I feel like, didn't play up to their potential. I think injuries is, of course, one cause of that, but then also first year, not only in the league, first year in the system, right? Because when you step into the NFL, you realize, okay, I'm just one of these great players. I'm not the great player. Not yet. You're not getting there yet. Right. You know, even a Sauce Gardner. Sauce Gardner had to come in and learn, like, okay, I know I was great in Cincinnati, right? I know I was great in Cincinnati, but now I gotta prove that I'm great on this level. And he was a guy that did that last year.
It's like lightning in a bottle, though, for a guy to come out of the box.
It doesn't
and make it happen that quickly.
It's very difficult.
It really is.
First of all, you have to learn how to be a pro. Stuff is scheduled and structured, yes, but you're on your own. You know, like
Right.
you got to pay your own bills. You know, you got to find a place to stay. You know, you got to get your own groceries. There's no, I mean, they got food here, but there's no training table. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have vouchers and cards to swipe and they give you food.
All right, so this leads me to something that I've got to ask you today, because Wink Martindale was asked this sometime in the last 36 hours. He was asked if you have Deonte Banks and Trey Hawkins as two of your three starting corners, again, assuming that Adoree Jackson will go into the slot when the Giants go with three corners, how much or how nervous or how much does that stress you out? And Wink said, no, not at all. But now give that to me from a player's perspective. As a guy who played defense, okay, if you know that you're on a defensive unit that has two rookie corners out on the boundary, how stressed out or how worried are you?
Definitely a little worried, for sure. Not too stressed because most of that stuff falls on the safety, right?
Mm-hmm.
The safety, Xavier McKinney, Dane Belton, Pinnock, those guys who are going to be playing that other safety across from Xavier McKinney, they have to do a great job in communicating, right? And I'm rewinded all the way back to my sophomore year in college. We had a couple of safeties that were veterans, right? Two young sophomore starting linebackers, myself and DeAndre Levy, who both had plus 8-year NFL careers, but we were young, right? If it wasn't for those two veteran safeties communicating to us, we would have been out there lost. Like, that's just straight up. Landon Collins, his first year here with the Giants and going into his second year. Brandon Merriweather and Craig Dahl. Mm-hmm. Those guys not only communicated with him when they were on the field together, but Landon was a starting safety, so those guys weren't starters, but they helped them and they worked with them. Communication, recognition, all of the things that veterans do, you got to school these young kids to. You got to let them know this is how you prepare, this is how you learn. We got to be communicating, and we all got to be on the same page.
In particular, I've heard from the corners that Adoree Jackson and Bobby McCain have been very helpful.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. The safeties have to do a good job because the corners, the reason why they were drafted because of potential, right? Deonte Banks and Trey Hawkins, they both are big, fast, explosive corners that can cover. Next is the mental game. When you go against the best athletes in the world that play wide receiver in the NFL, when you're looking at the best athletes in the world, you're not only looking at the best athletes, these wide receivers in the NFL are smart.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what separate the average, decent, good receivers from the great receivers. And luckily, the Giants don't have to look further out this division to find some great receivers.
Oh, that's for sure. The tests will come fast and early.
You got a pair of receivers in Philly. You got a threesome damn near in Dallas, and then also A.J. McLaurin down in Washington. You got these are grade A receivers. These are guys that not only are physically great and they can make all the catches and they make the contested catches. They're tough. They'll go across the middle, but they're smart guys.
I mean, that's 6 games right off the bat in your division as rookies that you have the potential to get schooled in.
Yes, or baptized, as they would say.
Fine.
Yep, and it'll start week 1. But look, I think because if you got a guy like Adoree Jackson who can play that third corner, nickel back, and he's also kind of fitting into that run game as well, that I think it'd help take pressure off some of those guys on the outside. When you look at week 1, right, because all of this that they're doing preseason, everything that the Giants did leading up to training camp is to prepare themselves for September 10th against the Dallas Cowboys.
Right.
That is what they're doing. So the Giants might change their thought process after week 1, but everything right now is to win week 1. And what they're doing now, they got their they're over 6 foot corners on the outside. Yes, they're rookies, but ain't nobody else like them in the room. They're the biggest corners in the room, both of the rookies, and they're going to have to go outside and play some really good receivers. Brandon Cooks and Gallup, and then
Lamb.
Also CeeDee Lamb is going to be in a slot. You need somebody to match up against CeeDee Lamb, and I love Darnay Holmes, but Darnay Holmes is overmatched against CeeDee Lamb one-on-one. You leave him one-on-one with CeeDee Lamb all game, even Adoree Jackson. You leave him on CeeDee Lamb all game one-on-one, That's going to be some difficult, coverages. But if you get a guy like a Adoree Jackson that can match up with a very talented receiver that's inside, and it's so hard to cover those guys because they can go out, up, they can go left, right, out, and up, right? Mm-hmm. They can do anything. They can go any direction.
Well, it's a four-way release.
Exactly. On the outside, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit easier to understand what kind of routes they're running. So I like them bumping Adoree Jackson inside because he's more experienced. And they did this when Eli Apple got drafted here in New York. You got a Pro Bowl guy in Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie, a Pro Bowl guy who they paid to come here in Janoris Jackrabbit Jenkins, and then they draft Eli Apple, bump DRC inside. At first, I wasn't too happy about that because I'm like, DRC needs to be outside. But then DRC showed that he can play inside because he has experience. I think guys like Mike Hilton for the Cincinnati Bengals are extremely underrated. Guys that can excel at that because you're going to play corner, but then you're also going to play linebacker, and you're also going to play safety. That's right. You have to be a very versatile and smart player to play inside.
And you better be willing to hit.
Right. Who else is going to be that for the Giants? It has to be Adoree. And I think Darnay's there. He had a chance last year. I don't think he did as great a job as they wanted him to.
Well, he's been inconsistent his whole career.
That's what I'm saying.
And that's why, without grabbing that job by the throat, the Giants finally decided a couple of weeks ago, keeping the Cowboys in mind and C.D. Lamb, we're going to have to do better.
Yep.
Oh, well, let's try throwing Adoree in there. That's the whole reason for this idea and this experiment to come to fruition.
And it's all about matchups. Like they talk about boxing and UFC. It's all about the fighting styles,
always,
right? All about matchups.
Always.
The Giants are trying to match up to the explosiveness of this Cowboys offense, right?
201-939-4513 is our phone number here on Big Blue Kickoff Live. We're going to try to go rapid fire. So glad to have Jonathan here with us today. So we want to get to as many calls as we can. The Giants will be playing the Carolina Panthers tomorrow night at MetLife Stadium in preseason game number 2. Bit of news, if you want to call it news, is that head coach Brian Daboll has declined to announce how many snaps any of his starters will get, if any at all. The writers really tried to pry it out of him yesterday, and Brian would not have any part of that. So we really don't have any answers. So that's the one question we do not want you to ask, because only Daves and his staff know how many snaps the starters may play.
I'm going to guess because I've done this before.
A series?
Not in the 3, preseason game era.
The configuration is different now because it's only 3.
And they rely a lot on practices. Yeah. I think at least 2 series for most guys. But somebody like a Saquon, somebody like Daniel Jones, Andrew Thomas, they might just get 1.
All right. The Giants Huddle podcast is available right now, of course, on all your favorite podcast platforms and at Giants.com. You can hear all kinds of interviews there. Make sure that you leave a positive review if you're on the Apple podcast site, I suppose is what you would call it. Don't forget now, Run or Walk with Giants Legends. The Giants Foundation will host a 5K race and Kids Run presented by Quest on Sunday, October 8th. That is at 9 a.m. at MetLife Stadium. Net proceeds will benefit the Giants Foundation. All participants will receive a commemorative T-shirt. After the race, stay for a post-race festival with appearances by Giants legends and a live DJ. Register now at Giants.com/5K. And Giants fans, don't forget, take your fandom to the next level with a season ticket membership. Stay connected to the team all year round, not just on game days. Memberships are now available for the 2023 season. To learn more, visit Giants.com/tickets. Limited inventory is available. And of course, we always remind you that there are 2023 single game tickets available for the Giants this season. We were talking yesterday, Jonathan, a couple of games I believe are already sold out, but there are some single game tickets available for the Giants home slate this year. Go to Giants.com/tickets to secure your seat. And now it's time to talk to you folks at 201-939-4513. And let's see who is first up on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Pearson, I believe we have, why is it not on my screen for some reason?
I gotcha. We'll go to Jay in Phoenix.
Thank you. Jay, you're first on the program. Hello.
Hey, Paul. Hey, Jonathan.
What's going on, man?
Jonathan, appreciate your efforts over the years playing for the team. And then, Paul, you've been a stalwart for years and years and years. It's fun.
Decades.
It's fun. It's fun listening to these Yeah, no kidding, for decades. So I really appreciate you guys' hard work. I had a couple questions. So first, my son and I are actually coming out to the opening game. We live out in Phoenix, but we're flying out to see Giants versus Cowboys.
Okay.
And I wanted to get any advice that you've got. We don't have family in the area, so we don't have tailgating set up or anything. Anything to experience on the game day itself that you'd suggest?
Yes. Come early so you can go to the Giants preseason or pregame show hosted by your boy.
Okay.
We'll be outside the Pepsi gate. So, yeah, come through.
One of the things you can do, there's usually a lot of activities out there going on in the concourse level. If you get here early enough and you want to go to the second level, the Giants have their Legacy Club, which is kind of like a Giants Hall of Fame, if you will, and museum.
Oh, nice.
And part of that is open a couple of hours before the game. So once you use your tickets to get into the gates and you take a look at the radio pregame show, I'll be part of that too, as I always am. You can go up to the second level, and they will have a portion of that museum open. Not all of it, but a portion of it is open. You can see all the busts from the Hall of Famers in there. I think Eli's locker is in there.
I've been in there. I didn't know it was open to the fans, though. That's dope.
Yeah.
That's dope.
That first room is open to the fans a couple hours before kickoff, and that's a really cool thing if you have an
it is.
opportunity to see that.
Very cool. Appreciate the advice.
Sure.
So, couple questions. First one's about Saquon's contract, and so I understand that he could have signed a tag, but he ended up signing a different contract. Was that the tag with the money kind of getting moved around a little bit, or was it a completely different contract, meaning that he could actually negotiate with the Giants during the season?
No. He cannot negotiate with the Giants during the season.
Okay.
It is a one-year deal, but what they did was you're allowed to either sign the tag or because the deadline passed for the multi-year deal, as we've talked about 1,000 times, or you can sign a one-year deal for something more than the tag if the team is so inclined to give it to you. And the Giants did add a little bit of incentive money to it, but it's a one-year deal, and they cannot talk to him about a new deal. Well, I suppose unofficially they could say, like, we're going to talk at the end of the season and we'd like to do something else, but he cannot sign a new contract until after this one is done.
Jay, the great thing about this is that the Giants had the franchise tag in their back pocket once Daniel Jones signed his contract. It's a great business move to sign a guy who potentially is a $13-14 million a year guy when you look at the top running backs in the NFL. But the Giants, this is straight business, bro. But then at the end, I feel like that was personal. I think in order for them to get Saquon Barkley in training camp on time, they felt like they needed to do something that's outside of business. It's still business, but more of a personal, like, bro, we like you. We love you. We want you here. So we're going to give you an extra 800. Was it 800,000?
It was a
something
total
like
of
that?
900.
900,000, almost $1 million extra.
In incentives.
When they don't have to do that because they're locked into the franchise tag. And as long as Saquon signed it, that's it. Sealed and done. But I feel like they took an extra effort and went away from regular business, and they was like, okay, cool. Let's do this to show him that we appreciate him and we value him. Because at the end of the day, the market is the market, bro. That's all business, right? And at the end of the day, when you have an owner, a GM, a head coach that's going to do something a little bit extra for you outside of the market, I think that's a special thing. Of course, I don't think Saquon is happy because he didn't get the long-term deal and that fully guaranteed upfront money that he wanted, that we think he deserves. But it's not about what we think. It's about the market value. And then business became business as soon as Daniel Jones signed that contract. And then all the leverage shifted over to the New York Giants.
Right.
And I think the New York Giants just gave a little bit back to him, saying, we want you here. And that's what you saw from this contract.
Now, to further clarify what happened by ripping up that tag they've already burned, that is the Giants,
First
tag number one. Okay, that's over with. Even though they didn't use it. I mean, they used it but then ripped it up so that they could give him a little bit of extra money in incentives. That counts against their tag allotment. So now, if they wish to tag Barkley for the 2024 season, it becomes tag number 2 on Barkley, and the estimated tag number for a running back for the franchise next year would be $13 million guaranteed for one season.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I appreciate the clarification on that. 'Cause
Sure.
that was something I was wondering. And then last thing I wanted to ask was just about the tight ends. I heard you guys talking the other day, and I noticed that last season it looked like they put Chris Myarick at fullback, and I think they kept Bellinger, Cager, and I can't remember who the other one was, but it looked like Myarick was listed as a fullback. Do you anticipate them doing something like that this year again with Sweeney or Myarick again?
And also Bellinger too. I don't think you count out any guy that's not Darren Waller to play fullback. Because that gives that gives the offense a little bit more versatility. And if you come out with 12 personnel, which is 2 tight ends, and Bellinger's at fullback, all of a sudden it's 21 personnel. Right? And then you have Waller, you can split them out, and you can split both of those guys out. All of a sudden, it's 10 personnel with 4 wide receivers. Yeah. It gives them so much versatility if guys like Bellinger, who we understand the type of player he is, the type of man he is, the size that he has, and the mismatches that he can create, and that can give them a lot of versatility on offense, which I think all of the guys besides Waller, who I don't want Waller blocking anybody from the backfield. I don't mind him doing it from the line of scrimmage. I don't mind him doing it from the outside. But don't line him up to try to go size up these DNs, okay? Don't do that. And I don't think the Giants will. But a guy like Bellinger, who's going to put his hand in the dirt, who's going to start games, not Waller. Like, I think some games Waller's not going to start. I think they're going to come out in 11 personnel. It's going to be Bellinger. And then, of course, Waller's going to get in there. But I think Bellinger is the all-around tight end that can do everything. He can catch, he can inline block, and he can move the fullback.
Jay, I will add this. I've said it before in this program. Maybe you've missed it. I believe the Giants are going to keep Cager as the 3rd tight end, and I think that Matthew Pert, who is a backup offensive lineman, will also be the jumbo tight end. And thereby, I believe that Sweeney is going to wind up getting cleared through waivers and go to the practice squad. I think they want to keep him in the building, but I think when you're talking about that extra blocking tight end, I think they're going to look at Pert to be that guy when they need him, because it's not a formation they're probably going to use very much. Okay?
Yeah, no, makes sense. Yeah, I was trying to think from a roster machination. With all these receivers, how you keep everybody.
Well, yeah, and I don't think there's any way they can keep more than 3 tight ends, which is why Pert's versatility. Remember, he's a very athletic guy who played a lot of basketball when he was younger and has played some of that jumbo tight end spot. He caught a touchdown pass earlier in his career. So that's, to me, that's a no-brainer. To me. I know not everybody on our show agrees with me on that one, but that's how I see it. Thanks for the call.
All right.
201-939-4513 is our phone number. I did want to tell folks also that when you go to the app, Giants TV, you can get original video content and game highlights on demand and direct to Big Blue fans. Giants TV is free on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire TV, and the Giants mobile app. 201-939-4513 is our phone number. We go next to Len from Maryland. You are on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hello, Len.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
What's going on?
What's up, Len?
Hey. Paulie, last year it was Phillips who filled that jumbo tight end position.
He had to do some of it. Even Cunningham had to do a little bit of it. I mean, they've had a few guys over the last few years who have had to do it for one reason or another. Remember, Pert's had a bunch of injuries, too, in his first few years of the league.
Yeah.
But I think he's the guy this year.
Okay. Did you do the play-by-play the other night, Paulie?
Yes, on Friday in Detroit.
Hey, good for you. Did you have fun doing that?
Sure did.
Good. I obviously couldn't hear it down here, but somebody happened to mention during a phone call that I had with another Giants fan that you had done the play-by-play. Good for you.
Appreciate it.
Jonathan, I really enjoyed your 1-minute explanation of the transition from college football, highly structured, to the professional level, where after practice you're pretty much on your own, and you gotta kind of make your own way and be able to do that. It reminded me of a detailed scouting report that I saw within the last 10 years on one of our former number 1 draft picks. I won't mention the name, but the detailed review ended by saying he can't cook. And upon further query, I was able to find out that what he meant by that was that he wasn't going to be able to deal with the unstructured atmosphere at that young age, that he wasn't quite ready to do that, and that was one of the negatives that this scout had on that player. So I kind of listened closely when you talked about that, and I would agree that's a big step, because you finish practice and you got a lot of time on your hands, and you got to be able to stay safe and relax a little bit. So I appreciate your comment on that, Jonathan.
Thank you, man.
Paulie, on the practice squad, the way you broke it down at the beginning, that was really pretty cool. 3 categories. To me, it's almost like the roster for the 53 is, to me now, the way we use the practice squad, it's almost like a 60-man roster. Now I know those last 7, 54 through 60, are going to be paid differently than the 53.
Mm-hmm.
But the way they use it, I think you were right on with that. It's like you need those insurance policies. Now, with regard to the insurance policy idea, Paul, how many veterans are we allowed to keep on the practice squad? Do you know?
I think the number is 6.
Okay.
But I'm not. Don't marry me to that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And so I suspect there are some guys who could be 3 or 4. You look at X-Man, and you say, well, maybe if he doesn't make the 53, maybe the insurance policy, and we ask him to, be on the practice squad.
It is 6, Len. I just checked it.
Okay. Thank you very much.
No
I appreciate that, Paul. Jonathan, you talked a little bit about Adoree Jackson in the slot, and I've kind of been intrigued by that, reading about it. I haven't really seen it yet. Do you think that really has something to do with, we've looked at the roster and we've said C.D. Lamb is just going to be too tough for the regular folks that we play in the slot?
He's tough for everybody.
I mean, you watched the games last year, right?
Yeah.
You watched the games last
year. So every team, including ourselves, has to react to that. Do you think that's really what it's all about?
Absolutely, yes. Because you know what it is. A lot of the really top good receivers, they play on the outside in the NFL usually.
Mm-hmm.
CeeDee Lamb plays in the inside 60% of the snaps, which is a big number for a guy that could be possibly matched up on your third corner or a linebacker. That's the potential. Like if you think about it, right? And I love Victor Cruz, and he was hell to play against because he was a strong, sure-handed, explosive receiver that played in the slot. Mm-hmm. You know who might match up against him? Me. Linebacker, the nickel linebacker might match up against CeeDee Lamb. Yes, you have to understand who you're going against. And in this division, one of the most talented receivers in the league is not on the outside, he's more on the inside. Mm-hmm. You have to know that. You have to understand that, and you have to prepare for it. And I think that's what the Giants are doing.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's good to know. Heard it break down that way. Hey, to the previous caller on what to do before the game at the stadium as a season ticket holder, one thing I would advise after stopping by the pregame show with you guys, Jonathan, if I think he was coming from Phoenix, and it's your first time, you got to make a visit to the Legacy Club, as Paul suggested. You wander around in there for a few minutes, and you're going to be ready to play a football game that night. It really gets to you. It really gets to you.
It's very cool.
What do you think? I'm just going to make a guess. We probably got about 8 slots left on the 53, so it's going to be really interesting. And Paula, you pointed out last week, don't count out Shane Lemieux, and he had a nice game the other night.
Really good second half.
Yeah, still in the running. So it'll be interesting to see a couple of those, last spots on the 53. Hey, guys, thanks for taking my call.
Be well,
Let's
Len.
go Giants.
All right, take care.
Thanks, Len.
201-939-4513. I keep thinking that there's going to be like 3 weeks for these guys to still prove themselves. Well, to be frank with you, the cut has to come on August 29th.
Not that much
So it's
time.
actually only 12 days. It's 12 days. Well, you know why? Because
not
I
even
kept
2
thinking.
weeks.
Well, I kept thinking you got that third preseason game, then you have a week and a half off till you play the game against Dallas. But the cut has to come on the 29th. It doesn't come closer to the Dallas game. It comes only 2 days after the Giants play the Jets, and that game is just about a week away.
Right, a week away, next Saturday.
Okay, so it's 12 days from today.
A big number. It's over
a huge
35
number.
guys that they have to cut at one time.
It's from 90 to 53. And how about this number, Jonathan? I said this the other day when I forget what show I was on, or even if it was in Detroit. You know, right now, as we speak today, on the Giants' 90-man roster, there are 34 players who are in their first year with the Giants right now.
Wow.
So
Over a third. Yeah, it's crazy.
So now, of course, once it gets down to 53, that number is going to shrink significantly. But it just goes to show you how much work this front office has done to get this playoff team to try to go to another level.
Yeah, I like that. I like how you said that, because they are a playoff team.
201-939-4513. We've got a couple of lines open and, about 15 minutes or so left on the show. Let's go to Tim from Charleston. You're next on Big Blue Kickoff Live.
Hey, Paul, Jonathan. I'm not from Charleston. I'm in Charleston, but we'll pass on that.
Okay.
I got 3 quick questions for you. The first one's about coverage. The other 2 are to get your opinion on things. In terms of the preseason games, because last year we were lucky. I think 2 or 3 or all 3 of the preseason games were actually on TV down here, but none of them are, I think, this year. Can I listen to the radio feed for the preseason game tomorrow and next week on the Giants app, or is there a local radio station that I could probably find streaming it? So if you can tell me that, because I want to at least listen to it if I can't see it.
No, as far as I know, the only way you're going to be able to catch it on the radio is through WFAN's very strong clear channel signal. Now,
I've been able to pick them up in the past, like with your pregame show and stuff, so that's good to know. But
that's
it's not
the
on
best
the app.
way.
Okay.
No, it's not on the app any longer. That used to be the case, but that's no longer going to happen. So that's the only way to do it. And as far as the next 2 preseason games, they'll both be televised live by NFL Network. So quite frankly, you'll be able to watch
should be able
them.
to see them.
If you have NFL Network,
I didn't know that.
both the Panthers and Jets games will be live on NFL Network.
Excellent news. Thank you, Paul. Thank
you.
So the next question is about offensive line and numbers. And, going on some assumptions here, obviously, Glowinski, Bredesen, JMS, Zudu, Thomas, Neal, and Pert is the first swing tackle. And then you've got Lemieux. And you've got McPheeson, I think is how it's said.
McKeithen you're talking about?
McKeithen.
Who just came back, by the way, from the PUP list. So, he's got a lot of catching up to do. And don't forget, did you say Phillips?
No, I didn't mention him.
Well, that's another guy right now who's been dinged up, and he's been in this system, and he can play both tackle and guard. So he's another young veteran who certainly is going to be strongly considered for a job.
And I didn't realize McKeithen had come off the pup, because I thought they might keep him on pup at the beginning to have more flexibility. But so my question comes down to is, can you go into a season with just one true swing tackle if you have guys who can play guard and tackle? So that was my question, basically.
Yeah, I think you could. With one swing tackle, and then you got guys that play inside and outside, so that gives you 2 or 3 guys that can play tackle outside of the starters. I think that's fine.
Now, to be fair, and I'm not trying to be funny, Wyatt Davis had never played a snap at tackle in his life until Detroit the other night, and it did not go well.
And it showed.
He was a goldfish out of water, and that's not his fault. But they needed somebody to take those snaps, and he was the sacrificial lamb.
That's exactly the term. It's sacrificial lamb, and it happens.
Yesterday.
That happens.
I heard you say that yesterday with John. So I'm just figuring if we keep 9, somebody's going to get squeezed out. And I guess Lemieux is probably. I know he had a good second half last week, but he may be low man on the totem pole, although he can cover at center, which gives him an up. Anyway, so my last question is this, and this is a hypothetical. So I want you to I'm going to try to phrase this the right way so it's easier to answer.
You know how much we dislike hypotheticals. Go ahead.
Oh, come on, Paul. You and Lance are the hypothetical kings. Come on.
He hates the fact that I don't like them. Go ahead.
All right. So anyway, when the 90s get cut down to 53.
Yeah.
So the question has a couple of assumptions. One is if we were to pick up one guy at one position, discounting special teams value, because obviously that could certainly come into play, but discounting special teams value, what specific position do you think is the most likely for the Giants to pick up after the rosters are cut and there's a plethora of guys out there?
Right
and
tackle.
I'll take your answer off the air. Thank you.
Right tackle. That's it. That's mine.
I mean, in all honesty, I'm going to go against what you said a minute ago, and I'm not going to discount special teams because I've been saying since February, half of the Giants' core special teams guys for last season, and they weren't great on specials last season, okay? Half of those guys are gone. And I've been saying this now since February. The dot that's not on everybody's radar and should be is special teams.
Absolutely.
Because I've been having trouble naming who the core special teams guys were going to be for months. And you know what? The other night they gave up a 95-yard punt return for a touchdown, which had 3 missed tackles on it. And I'm sorry, folks. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people don't want to recognize that, but they need to figure that out, okay? They need to figure that out. And until they do, I'll tell you, if I can find a Keon Crossan or somebody of that nature on the waiver wire who is a special teams demon, that's the guy that I'm looking for on the waiver wire.
No,
I'm sorry.
I'm with you, but I'm always an advocate for special teams and finding out who the core group of special teamers are for the New York Giants. But I'm not going away from the man's question, though, Paul.
I'm
going
changing
to
his
answer question.
Look,
I think right tackle and the depth at tackle needs to get addressed because what we saw in the game, that first string, maybe the second string gone. What if you're down to your third tackle?
Well, you're hoping that Pert continues to raise his level because he's actually done pretty well the last few weeks of camp, and you're also hoping that Tyree Phillips gets healthy again.
Right.
Because he's functional.
Yeah, he is.
Now, I will say this. The Giants picked up Ray Wilborn off of waivers from Denver yesterday. Okay? 2 days ago. That's a big deal. You know why? Because Wilborn only played 2 games in the NFL last year, and all 31 of his snaps were on special teams. All right? See, that in itself, the fact that they just picked up a guy who's a 220-pound outside linebacker who's barely played in this league, and when he has, he's been exclusively on special teams. You don't need to be a genius to realize that set off a fireworks flare and told you that this staff is very much worried, and they're in step with what I'm telling you. Special teams is a concern, and they just picked up a guy who they think can help elevate them on specials. Watch for Ray Wilborn. I believe he's number 48. Watch for him in this game against Carolina. See where they use him, see what he does, see if he's down there making plays, see if he's making tackles. I think this guy has been brought in specifically because they are mega concerned about special teams.
And you know what, Paul, too, which people don't really consider, but if you really think about it, right, if you got guys that are going to play special teams during the season, going against guys that are not going to be in the NFL during preseason, you should see those guys rise to the top. In preseason, you should see those guys that are going to play special teams in the NFL for a roster, for Giants, whoever, they should show up on Friday or Saturday.
The best special teams play made by the Giants coverage units in Detroit was Cordell Flott. He got down there on one kick coverage, and he got the guy by the shoelace and knocked him down.
Early.
Got him for a no gain on a return.
Yes, and that's very hard to do. Great play by him.
Especially when you're not a huge, strong guy.
Right, and then and this is the thing that we were talking about a lot going into this offseason and leading up to this season coming up. The Giants needed to get depth. They needed to get better, not just for offense and defense, but for special teams. Flott was a player for the Giants defense last year that did a lot. He may not play that many defensive snaps. So he's probably going to have to do his thing on teams and make a living there, which is fine. And then if something happens to one of the top 3 or 4 or 5 guys in a defensive back room, then you get active, you get elevated, and you play more defense.
Right now,
But
that's
you
the finished
need
unit on this team.
Solid special teams players.
Yeah,
You
there's no
need 'em.
doubt.
You need them.
I mean,
100%.
I'm really liking the 22, okay? And I'm liking the depth at a lot of positions. But special teams, I'm sorry, but I'm seeing a very thin unit right now.
Yep.
And maybe this fellow from the Broncos will help raise their level of play. Let's go back to the phones. Stu in Portland, you're next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hello.
Hi, how you guys doing?
Very well. How are you?
Okay. I'm calling for maybe one reason. You kind of missed something when you talked about listening to the games live. If you get serious.
Oh, that is true.
On Sirius.
That is true. Sirius XM NFL Radio does carry the radio broadcast.
Thanks, Stu.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That's very
Paul,
astute of you to remember.
How'd you miss that, Paul?
Because I have Sirius in my car, not in my house. So there would never be a reason for me to tune in a game in my house. That's why. But that's a good point.
Well, if you do subscribe online, you can get it in your house. It's channel 823.
There you go.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Appreciate that.
Good
I've
one,
been
Stu.
a long time Giant fan. Back in the 40s. Season subscriber from 1956 until 1980 when I moved to the West Coast. I listen to you guys every day, if not live.
Well, thank you for your attention. We appreciate that.
I
And by
listen
the
to
way,
it-
Stu, let's take it to another level. I think if you get the right subscription to Sirius XM NFL Radio, or Sirius XM, I think you can also listen to the game on your app on your phone through the Sirius app. Is that right, John? Does the Sirius app
Yeah.
also play the game? John's not sure, but I think you can actually get it on your phone.
I don't work for Sirius.
Okay, I know, but Sirius carries the game, so I think it would naturally be on the app.
Sure.
We're not sure, but we think so. Stu, go ahead.
I can verify that the answer is yes.
It is yes. It is on the app also. Okay, that's great. But that's the Sirius XM app. That's not the Giants app.
Right. If you subscribe online, you can get it on your radio, your iPad,
Excellent.
anywhere that you have Wi-Fi.
Well, thank you, Stu. I appreciate that information. Anything else you wanted to add?
Nope, that's it.
All right, be
Thanks,
well.
Stu.
Real quick, we'll take one more call if somebody wants to get quick with their fingers at 201-939-4513. Before we do, quickly, Jonathan, is there one snippet that you're going to be looking for out of this Panthers game? Again, we don't know who's going to play, but is there one thing? I'm telling you now, it's special teams. I want to see some good special teams coverage in this game against Carolina.
I'm going to look not only to see if Tamon Fox and Baldonado can show up again, but who else is going to be on the defensive side and show up that they can be one of these rotational pieces and possibly be a special teamer as well.
Yeah, how
That's
about
what I'm
what
looking
Tommy
for.
DeVito did the other day, huh?
Yeah.
I think Tommy DeVito, who had been very quiet during training camp, he showed up in Detroit.
Look, I'm going to be honest with you. When I was at practices, the times I came to practice, I watched Tommy DeVito scramble on 7-on-7.
Yeah.
Like, you don't scramble on 7-on-7. You throw the football on 7-on-7. To watch him do the things that he did, especially in the first half, when I felt like he got decent protection in the first half, I felt he played lights out.
Sweet
I think he
touchdown
made
pass to Sweeney.
Great decisions. Not too many errant balls that he thrown early in the game. And then second half, it was kind of hard. He didn't have too much time in that pocket.
No.
He was running for his life.
Giants gave up 5 sacks in that game, so he was under duress.
Right. And probably how many in the second half? 4?
I think it was
probably,
4
in the second half.
Yeah.
That's a lot, especially on a
No
young
doubt.
kid like that who he wants to win the game. Like, not only is he competing for a starting job to get to that third string quarterback, which is like very difficult to do in this NFL, but he wants to win the game. So that's a lot on him. And I thought he showed composure. I love what he did on 4th down on the last play of the game. I love he didn't take a sack. I love he just threw it up in the air.
Yeah.
He gave guys a chance. If you take a sack, 0 chance. You throw that
Correct.
ball in the air, I don't care what chance it is, it's a chance.
Right.
And he did that. And I like that from him.
Hey, you never know. You might even get a defensive penalty down.
Exactly. And then you get another play. Boom.
We have one more call to sneak in. Marty in Manahawkin. You're the last caller on today's Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hello.
Hey, how you doing, Paul?
Hi.
Hey, you're talking about special teams. I was just wondering about the kid from Penn State there, Cam Brown. He used to be a special teamer also.
He's a teamer.
He is a special teamer, but
Inconsistent.
I would say not only inconsistent, but with the rest of the linebackers out there, he would have to be, in my mind, he'd have to be a stellar special
a
teams
dog.
guy, because as far as the regular defense is concerned,
not
he
playing.
is so deep. He is so deep on the depth chart. He needs to literally, absolutely ace it on specials, and I think we would all agree, while he was one of their better special teams guys, he's not an ace.
Yeah. Well, every week you meet offensively, defensively, and special teams. Every week you go over the elite players, you go over the problem players, right? You have to be, the Giants need to identify when that special teams meeting happens for the Dallas Cowboys, who are the elite special teams players that they're going to have to account for. And the thing is, we don't really know who those guys are. I think Carter Coughlin, you could probably throw him in there because of the experience. And that first play he made last year, I love it. And then he can also play defense as well. But is he the game changer on special teams?
I love this guy, but here's why I'm going to disagree with you.
And he wears number 52.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. All right, see, now we know the truth. We finally got to the crux of this. Carter, you're getting the benefit of the doubt from Jonathan because of the jersey number. Think about this, okay? Over the last how many years, some of the special teams guys who have come through here, the Michael Thomases, right? The Keon Crossons,
okay,
those kinds of guys. That's when I say elite, when I'm talking like guys who you might even consider as a possible Pro Bowl special team selection because they're that good. They're literally an ace.
Dwayne Harris,
absolutely. Dominic Hickson. I'm sorry, I don't see anybody on this special teams unit who even comes close to that level.
I hear you. I was just throwing a name out there. Potential.
Well, we'll see.
I like Coughlin. I mean, the name
I like him too.
The name, right?
I like him too.
Bro. Coughlin.
But he's not an ace.
I know.
Yeah, it's been a long time since we've had guys like that.
I love that you mentioned
guys.
Dwayne Harris, though. Man, he was tough.
He was so tough.
I can't believe I forgot him because he.
Bro, I've seen him get smacked like, bow, right to the face. Keep on running.
Broken ribs in London.
Keep on running. Just keep on running.
Broken ribs in London, came back into the game. Howard Cross and I were on the sideline. Howard says, I think he's dead. Seriously.
He was one of the toughest guys for sure to play that position.
Unbelievable. Okay, Marty, go ahead, real quick.
One observation. I don't know. You might have saw what I saw. The last play of the game, and I'm watching Tommy DeVito threw the ball up. I understand the guy is small, but the guy Pimpleton, he didn't even make a move to jump for the ball.
Okay. So you're saying there was not enough effort on the play.
I didn't think there was. He just stood there, flat-footed, and even didn't even make a move to try to contest, get a contested catch at least.
I understand your point, but I'm going to tell you, even if he had Michael Jordan in his sneakers, he's not jumping far enough to be able to make that play. He's not getting in the vicinity of that ball.
Yeah.
Well, all right, then, I could understand it when you put it that way.
Okay, Marty, thanks for the call. Enjoy the game tomorrow.
I felt that. I did feel that, though, the same way. I was like, nobody went up for the ball, and he was the guy that was around. But it was high, and it kind of looked like it was a little too far for him.
And the defensive back was playing center field. He was camped under it. He was not giving up that ball.
And he's, how big is Pimpleton? 5'9"?
I was going to say probably more like 5'8".
Yeah. I don't think he had eyes on it till too late, too.
That's what it was,
That's probably
Pearson?
too.
Yeah. Because it kind of looked like that. It looked like he didn't really.
It was a high-arcing lollipop throw.
Yep. Yeah.
So.
But, I mean, if he would have saw it, I think he would have jumped it. Because that makes sense because it did look a little weird and awkward at the end. But, I mean, we're not talking about like Darren Waller doing that, right? We're talking about a guy that probably may or may not make this team.
And trust me, if it's a regular season game and you got to throw a lollipop ball downfield to save a fourth down, you're going to get your taller receivers downfield.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay?
100%.
All right, Pimpleton's not the guy going down to make that play. All right, so remember, folks, Big Blue Kickoff Live is here every weekday. We talk Giants football for an hour. 201-939-4513 is our phone number. Hashtag Giants Chat on Twitter. Don't forget, you can always catch an archive of this show and all of our Giants podcasts on Giants platforms everywhere, as well as giants.com/podcasts. And remember, tomorrow it's the Giants and the Carolina Panthers in preseason game number 2. I believe it's a 7 o'clock tip-off, right, John?
Yep.
Tip-off. Kickoff. Tip-off.
He did say tip-off.
I said tip-off. John and I talk a lot of Knicks during the course of the week.
Not the last 3 months.
And that's true. 7 o'clock kickoff tomorrow. Pre-game show starts at 6 on WFAN. For Jonathan Casillas, I'm Paul Dottino. We'll catch you next time on Big Blue Kickoff Live. So long, everybody.